Let's take some of the characters from the Tomb of Nazarick from Overlord and make them into a playable party in Dungeons & Dragons, aka how to take an entirely broken necromancer with an insanely large undead army that can basically become unlimited and somehow make it more powerful. And before we dive in too deep with this, if you like any of this type of content, make sure to hit subscribe because I make tons of these videos, and if you want to let the algorithm know you like any of this type of stuff, make sure to interact with this video in any way, shape, or form, liking, commenting, any of that stuff, because it really helps the algorithm, and helps this video, and it lets it know that you like this kind of stuff. And if you stick around till the very, very end of this video, I have a very special announcement. But let's go ahead and dive in. Now, I already built Lord Ainz in a previous video, and I got pretty in depth with it, so I'm not going to go as in depth here because it basically showed how to completely break D&D in some really ridiculous ways, and how to get an unreasonably large undead army with just this character. I do recommend checking it out, but as far as the relevant bits for this video, you want to go ahead and build a necromancer. And if you build him right, you can wind up getting an unreasonably large undead army. I mean, it's basically unlimited undead in the way that I built him, but if you want to be slightly more reasonable, you can wind up using the spell Simulacrum to basically make a double of yourself. You can use the feature from being a necromancer wizard to command undead and take control of some mummy lords. Mummy lords can control 29 zombies or skeletons, and you can have 2 mummy lords thanks to having a simulacrum. Then with create undead, you can wind up having 5 wights, which can actually control 12 zombies, but this does require you to use both your 8th and 9th level spell slots. Then your simulacrum can do the same thing, creating 2 more wights, each of those creating another 12 zombies. Then make sure to grab 2 permanent zombies per day with Finger of Death, and dump a crap ton of spell slots into Animate Dead, getting you an extra 78 zombies or skeletons under your control. And your simulacrum can get another 68 zombies or skeletons. Not to mention all of those have additional bonuses because they're coming from a necromancer specialist. Because the only reason you can get so many of those is because you have the feature Undead Thralls. This comes at level 6 of being a necromancer, and it gives you an additional undead to control when you cast Animate Dead. Not to mention, whenever you create any sort of undead using a necromancy spell, that creature's hit point maximum is increased by an amount equal to your wizard level, and it gets to add your proficiency bonus as damage to any of its attacks. So even at the baseline, you got 339 undead at your control, but a whole bunch of zombies and skeletons still aren't hitting quite as hard, even if the ones that you directly summon happen to get a bonus equal to your proficiency bonus.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
So let's make sure they hit a little harder by giving you some backup. And we're going to add the first member to our party, my personal favorite guardian of Nazarick, Albedo. Now, Albedo is actually perfect for a particular class and subclass in D&D. She pretty much worships Ainz, but the reason she worships Ainz is because her original creator got kind of overwritten by Lord Ainz, and she was very devoted. But now she's very devoted to Lord Ainz, and I see this as breaking her original oath. So we're going to go ahead and make her a paladin and make her an oath breaker. And this is especially perfect because in the anime, she is a succubus, so that would be very high in charisma. And whenever she's out and about with Lord Ainz, she winds up having a full set of plate armor and a big ol' halberd. Having access to the martial weapons and the plate armor and being able to boost up the one that you have this devotion to in the first place is pretty spot on for Albedo. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into each character. I will have a full character sheet up on my Patreon for each one of these builds, but I want to get the highlights, otherwise this video is going to wind up being like 2 hours long. Now, everything about an Oathbreaker actually works super well for Albedo. 1, they get access to Dominate Person, and being a succubus, that kind of feels fitting. 2, they get access to Animate Dead, so if you want to add to the undead army in some way, you can do that. They can use their channel divinity for control undead to control some other undead on the battlefield if they need to. They get an insanely powerful ability called Dreadlord at max level, so they can do crazy damage in the shadows to everything around them. But at a much lower level, they get a much better benefit, at least for this particular party, since we're focusing so much on turning an undead army into an even more overpowered one. Because at 7th level of being an Oathbreaker Paladin, you get Aura of Hate. So any fiends or undead within 10 feet of you gain a bonus to their damage equal to your charisma modifier. And at 18th level, that range of your aura or emanation in 2024 increases to 30 feet. That means you get to add Lord Ainz Gon's proficiency bonus of +6 and the +5 from Albedo's charisma modifier, meaning that every undead within 30 feet of Albedo is doing a +11 to any of their damage. So at this point, you want Lord Ainz Gon on the back line because he's a wizard, that's kind of where he usually winds up staying, and you have Albedo on the front. And the next character you gotta have lined up to boost up that undead army is probably going to butt heads with Albedo a bit because she is definitely in competition for Lord Ainz Gon's affection, and that's the vampire Shalltear Bloodfallen. Shalltear Bloodfallen is a vampire, so we want to go ahead and choose the species Dompire, which is basically just a vampire, and I actually want to go ahead and make her a cleric. And you're going to have to stick with me on this one a little bit, because being a cleric would be insanely beneficial for a lot of reasons. I mean, she'll be able to do plenty of healing if you need it, but also clerics are very good on the front lines. And while a death cleric might fit as far as the overall feel and theme, it's not going to be the best for this particular build, because we really want to focus on boosting up that undead army as much as possible and everything around us. And the best way to do that is by sticking right up front with Albedo and leaning into our emo vampire nature by being a Twilight Cleric. Now, Twilight Clerics already get heavy armor and martial weapon proficiency, which was kind of necessary for Shalltear, but all the 2024 versions of Cleric already get that choice anyways. The big benefit of this subclass is their channel divinity feature, called Twilight Sanctuary. So while you're on the front lines with all of those undead surrounding you, you can create a 30-foot emanation around yourself. And this can allow you to end some charmed or frightened effects, but the more beneficial version is allowing you to add 1d6 plus your cleric level worth of temporary hit points to every creature within 30 feet of you. And that happens every time a creature ends its turn in that area, meaning it's a constantly regenerating amount of temp HP. That's a solid shield of health. Not to mention they already get a boost to their health from being summoned by Lord Ainz Gon. But there's one other downside to low-level undead, and that's their armor class. They don't have a lot of it, but thanks to the higher level feature Twilight Shroud from being a Twilight Cleric, their Twilight Sanctuary provides more than just some temp HP. It also gives half cover. Half cover is automatically going to grant a +2 bonus to every creature's armor class in that area. And it's also going to give them a +2 bonus to their dexterity saving throws if they need it. Those two features alone make it so this is an ultimate frontline booster for the entire undead army that's anywhere close to your enemies. So now they have a boost to their defense thanks to the Twilight Cleric, and they have a boost to their offense thanks to the Oathbreaker Paladin, and they get a boost to both thanks to being summoned by a Necromancer. Now the average party size is between 3 and 5 players, so that would lean more towards our minimum. We have 3 characters already. But let's go ahead and add one more for an average. And we're going to lean into the idea of either Aura or Mare with a druid. And there's another druid that can add to the undead army, and that's a Circle of Spores druid, because they automatically get Animate Dead, just like every other character in this party. They get the feature Fungal Infestation, so anytime a creature dies near them, they can raise them as an undead right on the spot without spending any spell slot. They can do that a number of times equal to their Wisdom modifier, meaning that they essentially have 5 undead just immediately sprouting in the middle of battle. Granted, it's a zombie that only lasts 1 hour and it doesn't get any additional bonuses, but it's still a nice little boost to the numbers, and they can add to everything with their Animate Dead, and there's plenty of majorly buffing spells that druids get access to. Whether you want to rely on the Spores druid spell list specifically with things like Confusion or Blindness/Deafness, or you can lean into the spell Fairy Fire, because if you're going in with that massive of an army of undead you want to make sure they have advantage on their attacks, because the only thing we haven't been able to boost yet is their attack rolls. And if you wind up using Fairy Fire, you can cast a spell that targets an area of effect that will make it so you have advantage on attacks against an entire group of enemies. Now, that does bring us to the average party size, and that's even the party size that you can wind up relying on in something like Baldur's Gate 3, and you can build most of this party in Baldur's Gate 3. Unfortunately, there's no Twilight Cleric.
What? How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair.
But you can still get access to Animate Dead and just go with a Life Cleric and kind of just lean into whatever the opposites are, I guess. But if you have space for one more party member, I would throw in one more Guardian of Nazarick. Now, personally, my next favorite is Cocytus or maybe Sebas, but those don't really fit as well for this party build. Instead, you gotta lean into one of the more sneaky members of the team and go with Demiurge. Demiurge, you can build a Tiefling, which is very spot on, and go with a Sorcerer. By going with Sorcerer, you can get plenty of blasting. You get access to the spell Alter Self, so if you want to slash out with more of like claws or his weird metallic tail, you can do that with Alter Self. And sorcerers get plenty of boosting spells, but if you really want to contribute to the party, make sure that it's a Divine Soul Sorcerer. They get access to every spell that a cleric gets access to, and a cleric gets access to Animate Dead, meaning that they can really add to the number of undead if they really want to spend all those spell slots. Not to mention, they get extra spell slots, because they can spend their sorcery points to recover spell slots, but make sure you do it at the maximum, because that's the most effective way to gain the most number of undead in your party per sorcery point spent, because it's 5 sorcery points for a level 3 spell slot, but it's 7 sorcery points for a level 5 spell slot, and that means a lot more undead with Animate Dead than if you were to go with just a bunch of level 3s. Plus, on top of all that, a Divine Soul Sorcerer can actually spread out some bat wings, which fits very stylistically with Demiurge, and they can even have creepy eyes and stuff, which is also spot on for Demiurge. So Demiurge can stay at a distance and blast a ton or raise more undead or do whatever to contribute to the party. Now, what if you want some sort of powerhouse backing you all up? And I don't just mean another player. I mean somebody in the army of undead to really wreak some havoc. So let's go ahead and optimize the necromancy feature, Command Undead. Now, you have an insane amount of undead being a necromancer with Lord Ainz Gon already. And I'm not even sure if that factored in the arcane recovery feature that wizards have, so some people might want to check my math on that. But all those summons kind of depended on the idea of using a mummy lord, but there are far more powerful undead to be able to command as a wizard necromancer. And there's 2 important aspects of the Command Undead feature. The first one is that whatever you're targeting has to fail a charisma saving throw, and the second is that charisma save can be affected by their intelligence. So if they have an intelligence of 8 or higher, they wind up getting advantage on their charisma check, and they're allowed to try to break free of the Command Undead feature once per hour. So you want a creature with slightly lower intelligence and charisma. Now, there's a great option for a Greater Death Dragon. This is a challenge rating 14 undead creature. This comes from the Dragonlance book, so I don't even think it was out when I did my first Overlord build, but it has a feature called Cataclysmic Breath. So it makes a 60-foot cone of a breath attack, dealing necrotic damage. It's 10d8 necrotic damage, and any creature that dies from it winds up rising up as a zombie immediately afterwards under the control of the Greater Death Dragon. Now, this is a great option. It only has a charisma of 10, meaning it's probably going to fail its original saving throw, and it only has an intelligence of 11. So it will still have advantage and it will be able to retry it, but that low initial charisma is definitely going to work to your advantage. And they will massively increase the size of your army thanks to that breath attack, because they can just keep doing that, and that means your army is basically unlimited. But there is a much better option, because at a certain point, there's kind of a diminishing returns with zombies and skeletons. They can only get so close to a creature, and skeletons do have some ranged attacks along with wights, but still, there's only so many you can really throw in and it adding to effectiveness. But there is a much stronger creature to throw into the mix, and it's a challenge rating 20. And you're going to get it under permanent control pretty easily. It's called a Nightwalker. And these things are absolutely destructive. They have 337 hit points. They're immune to tons of different conditions. They have resistance to tons of different types of damage. They have 22 strength, 24 constitution, and 19 dexterity. But what they don't have a lot of is intelligence and charisma. They only have 6 intelligence and only 8 charisma, meaning they're going to do pretty bad on their saving throw to start, and they don't have advantage on it, and they don't get to re-roll it every hour. Their attacks focus on reducing their target's hit point maximum, not dealing direct damage, and they can do that twice. Plus they have a recharging feature called Finger of Doom, which can deal 6d12 damage, frighten a creature, and paralyze them at the same time. And a paralyzed creature is going to have non-stop critical hits on it as long as the other creatures within melee range. So all of those undead swarming somebody are all going to start critting, and they all have advantage on it, and it's just absolutely nuts. Not to mention, on top of that, no creature that has its hit points reduced to 0 by the Nightwalker can be revived unless somebody uses the Wish spell, because they have the feature Life Eater. And then on top of everything else, they have something that's absolutely perfect for being in the midst of tons of undead. They have a feature called Annihilating Aura. So any creature that starts its turn within 30 feet of the Nightwalker has to succeed on a Constitution saving throw, or take 6d6 necrotic damage. But very importantly, undead are immune to this aura. So as long as the Nightwalker isn't too close to Albedo or Shalltear, this thing is going to be dealing some absolute destruction. Not to mention, you can have 2 of them thanks to your Simulacrum. And that's pretty much the most intense undead army booster that I could think of. I really appreciated all of the feedback I got from the original Overlord build I did on this channel. And if you want to check it out, I'll make sure it's linked in the description. But if you want access to the character sheet for any character from this build or any of my other builds, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the description down below, where you can get access to every single character I make and help support this channel in tons of ways, just like some of these amazing people scrolling on by. Or I have some especially awesome player character patrons: Greg Withy, Alexander White, Ravelord, Nicole Biliak, Christopher Sam, Sparrows Cruel, Felix Ulick, The 10586, Kevin Shirley, That Funnyman 57, CGC 2014, Panda Milkshake, Karkat Kitsune, Decker Joint, Z13, Viral Naravar, Daniel Galvin, the Dino 21, and Salvador. Then there's the Dungeon Master level patrons that I stream playing D&D with over on Twitch: Brian Dunn, Dante Dixon, John Rohr, T Brownie, Julia B. De Oliveira, Shane Gilroy, Daniel Safler, CommanZX, GameStake, and Devin Happy. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here helping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you want to absolutely drive your Dungeon Master insane and make an entire party of undead army boosting insanity by making an entire Overlord themed party in your D&D campaign. But I also have that special announcement I was going to make, because I have a new channel that's releasing today. I loaded it up to start with a whole bunch of videos in case you like listening to me talk about things that aren't Dungeons & Dragons related. That's where I put clips from when I'm streaming over on Twitch. I find random Reddit stories that I go through, or I go on slightly structured rants about why Digimon is better than Pokemon, or the insane masterpiece that is the movie Hook, or even why Terminator 2 is secretly a terrible sequel. Which, don't get too mad at me, you gotta go check out the video if you really want to understand what I'm getting at. But I'll make sure that there's links in the description or floating around my head somewhere. And overall, this channel has made an insane amount of progress, and I'm so appreciative that people have come and watched my content. It's been a hell of a journey, and I don't plan on stopping it anytime soon. We broke 30,000 subscribers not long ago, and that was a huge deal for me. So I really want to say thank you so much to everybody that's been watching all this time. I plan on making plenty more D&D related content, but I also plan on having daily videos come out over on the other channel. They're going to be shorter and a little more simple, but I wanted an outlet for my non-D&D related stuff. So if you like hearing me talk about stuff, go ahead and check it out, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, keep keep playing D&D, and I hope you roll tons of nat 20s.